In this video, we're going to look at one of the most important experiments in the history of science. This is one conducted by Ernest Rutherford and his grad students. Apparently his grad students did most of the work and he took credit for it, which I think is somewhat common. So Rutherford's experiment is called the gold foil experiment. Another word for it is the Rutherford scattering apparatus. And what they did was brilliant. They shot alpha particles. Now, alpha particles we'll learn more about when we get to radioactivity, but it's the same thing as a helium nucleus. A helium nucleus. So 2 protons and 2 neutrons. And some radioactive elements give off alpha particles as they decay. So he took this radioactive element and he put it in a lead box with a hole in the box so that the alpha particles would be emitted in a specific direction. So we'll say this is the lead box, and this is the radioactive material. And so these alpha particles get fired as it decays. And then what they did is they took a piece of gold foil and they pounded the gold flat, very flat, so that it was only a few atoms thick. Think of saran wrap, but thinner and made of gold. And then what they did is wrapped all around this, they had a detecting screen. And when the alpha particles collide with the detecting screen, it gives off light flashes. And so what they found is that when the alpha particles, of course they couldn't actually see the alpha particles, but what they did see was a whole lot of light flashing right here on the detecting screen. And that must mean that most of the alpha particles go straight through the gold foil. So most particles undeflected. I'm not sure if that's a word. But not deflected, not reflected, they just go straight through. Okay, and then they found that there were some particles that got reflected. Some reflected, but only a little bit. And very few. So they had this detecting screen actually wrapped around. And what they found is very few alpha particles were reflected. Okay, so who cares? What does this tell us? Well, the fact that most of the alpha particles could go through the gold foil tells us that there was space in the gold foil for those alpha particles to go through. And based on the proportion that went through and those that got reflected, they could figure out approximately how much of the gold foil was empty space. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit more about what we learned from this experiment.